welcome. Today I'm here to present you a massive theory. Just be warned, I'll be using a lot of scientific facts from articles as well, and I should probably cite them. Okay, let's get started. In this video, we'll discuss history of poppy flower and production of opium from it, effects of opium on human systems, and what does it mean for the toys and the experiments in the factory. Was Playtime company selling and slash or producing opium? And lastly, how does the history of the poppy flower relate to all of these? History of poppy flower usage and production of opium from it. Poppy flower or Papaver somniferum is a flowering plant that contains medicinal alkaloids that are used to produce a narcotic mixture of drugs, which is called opium. And its seeds are edible. Yes, I know it sounds off, but there are many pastries that contains poppy seeds that are used to create powerful drugs. Okay, whatever. Mainly it grows in the Mediterranean area, and keep that in mind, we'll use that later. We all know at this point that everyone's favorite toy maker, Elliot Ludwig, believed that this flower has some supernatural properties. Well, why not take a look at what those properties are believed to be? First, in Greek and Roman myths, poppies were used as offerings to the dead. May I ask you to recall just how many themes and references we have about offerings, shrines, and near cultist organizations in the Chapter 3 teaser? Yes, a lot. Poppies on tombstones were meant to symbolize eternal sleep, and the bright scarlet color signifies a promise of resurrection after death. Other than the almost every time the references we get are about sleeps, where do we see exactly poppy flowers embedded to the surface? The protective suits of the resource extraction specialists in Project Playtime, yes. These employees were not meant to come back. They were sent to be in an eternal sleep. And there is another place. Just where do we see a giant poppy flower shown on a surface deep below the factory, put there for a character that has been sleeping for a long time. In our case, in our coffin.
You opened my case.
Promise of resurrection after death. Also, a little fun fact. Did you know that there are some Asian statues addressed to a poppy goddess? The name is given because she has poppy seed heads in her diadem, and other descriptions of her also have mainly bird motifs. I know it's kind of familiar, but okay, let's move on. The female figure known popularly as the poppy goddess is perhaps a representation of bringer of sleep and death. Well, I think it reminds us someone with the name Poppy, but who knows? Moving on, let's look at how do we produce opium from these little red flowers. Of course, first of all, you need to cultivate the plant. As I mentioned, you need somewhere warm like the Mediterranean area, which is why most of the natural opium comes to the United States from overseas, such as Southeast Asian countries or Eastern European countries, such as Turkey, and presumably to the Playtime code too, but we'll come to that later. After you're done with your plants, there are lots of processes, but long story short, it is a lot of job. Code. Raw opium collected from the opium poppy pod is placed in an open cooking pot of boiling water where the sticky glob of opium alkaloids quickly dissolve. And now you get a paste of opium after evaporating what little water left, as I understood. And these processes require a lot of water, like around 120 liters or 30 gallons of water for around 1.5 kilogram of the substance. And we can barely guess just how many experiments we run throughout the years, so yeah, they used a lot of it. I've spent days researching on opium and several derivations of the substance. I really don't even want to think about how my search history would look to an outsider. Effects of opium on human systems and what does it mean for the toys and the experiments. First of all, the EA states that it works quickly when smoked because opiate chemicals pass into the lungs. That's actually kind of predictable, but what makes this situation interesting is, as far as we know, Playtime co-used opium in mainly gas form, and that gas mask will be an important feature in Chapter 3. Now here's a research from the PubMed database. The results of the study show that the majority of patients with lung cancer has a history of opium and derivatives use, and the use of OND may be associated with an increased risk of lung cancer. These researchers also found a significant positive trend in association between lung cancer and duration of opium smoking or ingesting. I think that working in a factory that has intentional or non-intentional leaks of gaseous opium for every day for years may be considered a long duration, especially if you're a minor worker who is not properly protected from these chemicals with various equipments, like a gas mask. So, what I'm saying is the employee who agreed to be experimented on due to terminal lung cancer had the lung cancer because of the experimentations. Effects of opium on toys. You see, the thing with the opium is it's a drug and it is addictive. Therefore, it causes withdrawals when not used after using it for a long duration. Now, imagine this: poppy gel or the red gas, or both of them, have been used on the experimentation processes of these toys for a long time, at the very least for months. Now, imagine a scenario where the factory is closed and all these workers gone for 10 years now. And the thing is, if we assume anatomical functions of the bigger bodies initiative toys are kind of similar to humans since they have organs and stuff in them, there is one odd thing. A withdrawal cannot last 10 consecutive years without consuming any of the substance. As a result, I believe we have two options. First, they had their out of mind state with withdrawals long before our arrival as the player. This means they, Poppy, Mummy, Huggy, PJ, Panza, and everyone else, were completely themselves while interacting with us, which is not very likely due to reasons I'll discuss later. Secondly, they have or had until very recently an opium and or slash poppy supply that sustained them for that long. And when we look at the symptoms of opioid withdrawal, the second option seems way more likely: insomnia, seizures, hallucinations, delirium, and agitation. These are all things we see with the toys, and also some children that are we suspect about being experimented on have them too, like hallucinations, maybe, I don't know. Maybe this isn't even how the employees, despite very bad working conditions and presumably mobbing, keep working there. They're addicted and feel when they spend some time without opium. They feel it and they need to be in the factory to get that gas or the substance. Since some of these symptoms include hallucinations, all of these religious implications might even be derived from the puppy gas in the factory. Because when we look at the history of opium, in 1950s these chemicals were quite easy to acquire, like really the opposite of today, when you need a prescription for almost everything. It was also mainly used on soldiers during World War II and the Cold War. I actually believe that due to this nature of the substance, the company itself was also producing it. Because as we can see on the map of the Hagiwagi VHS tape, the field of the Playtime company is huge, very huge. Even though it probably is also related with keeping of curious eyes, they're making some unnatural experiments there. They wouldn't want someone stranger coming in. I believe, as I mentioned, producing opium from poppy flowers required a lot of water. Combining this with the giant water tanks we see in chapter 2, I believe we have lots of reasons to believe that they were producing it rather than buying from an outside source, as it would kinda draw a little too much attention if a toy factory of all places will be buying a pharmaceutical drug. Have you ever heard of the theory that all these mythical creatures or urban legends people tell ages ago were actually their hallucinations due to dark environment at nights, not being able to get treatment for eye problems and birth abnormalities, and burning several plants at nights and special rituals that releases some chemicals that have hallucinogenic properties? If I were an employee at a factory who releases hallucinogenic addictive gases, has monstrous gigantic toys escaping and roaming in the dark corners, I too would probably have hallucinations at the giant fields of poppy flowers. So I believe yes, they did grow a lot of poppy around the factory. There's one last tiny thing to mention about the history of the poppy flower actually. Stay with me though, this will be done very soon. While making a research about the production of opium, I found something else too. I think we all know by now that somniferum in papaver somniferum means sleep inducing. But did you know that around 4000 BC, Sumerians used to call poppy flowers the joy plant? So, by all means, poppy means joy. I think you know by now where I'm going with this. Let's look at the very name of our game. Poppy Playtime. Time for Poppy to play. The hour of joy. All of the references and implications we have about the hour of joy. It is
Whatever I need you to do.
Poppy Doll herself is executing a plan right now, and us, the player, is an integral part of it. We get chased by and struggle and kill many other toys, but Poppy herself is almost all the time in the shadows, watching us and talking all cryptic. She's the flower that sees it all.
I see you.
If you assume that the giant water tanks were indeed used to produce opium, where were they? Remember the first in there. Huggy fell straight to there. The poppy producing area is straight below Poppy's chambers and Elliot Ludwig's office itself. What was she even planning before Mommy Longlegs took her? Standing right near a giant hole saying, "Trust me"? We were in an almost empty room with nowhere else to go except down. She was testing us and we passed. Now it's time to collect our prize.
You're capable.
And literally none of the VHS tapes, documents, mails, security cams, or voice records mention Puppy Doll at all. Why was she put asleep in the first place? That doesn't even make sense because
Do you know how long I've been stuck in that case? Well, too long. I had so much time to think and reflect. Time to figure out exactly what I would do when free.
you can't plan stuff in your sleep. She wasn't sleeping. She was either immobilized or put in a trance-like state, or promise of life after death, offerings to the dead. Puppy was dead? Anyway, we finally reached the end of a very long theory video. Thanks everyone who's managed to come this far. Feel free to share your thoughts and theories in the comments and see you in the next video.